Ladies and gentlemen, this is TVP World. You're watching another edition of Break the Fake, where we debunk fake news and combat false narratives. I'm your host, Benjamin Lee, and let's get rolling. Now, kicking things off with Olaf Schultz, the master of strategic hesitation and an undisputed champion of why rush diplomacy. While Ukraine faces existential threats and German ministers Annalena Baerbock and Boris Pistorius frantically push for a €3 billion military aid, Schultz remains unmoved. IRIS-T systems, Patriot missiles, and artillery shells? Let's think about it, says the Chancellor. After all, what's a few more weeks of deliberation when lives are on the line? Schultz's office has made it clear there's no urgent need for action. Of course not. Why send help now when you can just wait and see how things play out? Maybe Ukraine will resolve everything on its own. Or maybe Putin will suddenly turn into a pacifist. Strategic patience sounds so much better than paralysis, doesn't it? Meanwhile, Christian Lindner, leader of the Free Democratic Party, got a mock cake in the face during a campaign rally. Germany's political stage is starting to look like a bad sitcom where the scriptwriters can't decide if they're writing comedy or tragedy.
Die Familie auf der anderen Seite des Flurs, die nicht arbeitet.
So here's to Schultz and his unparalleled ability to turn urgency into bureaucracy. After all, who needs decisive leadership when you've got caution and committees? Europe, the land of grand speeches about solidarity and democracy, followed by record-breaking gas imports from the very regime threatening it. In 2024, Europe managed to outdo itself, importing a staggering 17.8 million tons of Russian LNG, surpassing even the glory days of 2020 and 2023. Bravo, who needs principles when Gazprom offer bulk discounts? Russian LNG shipments have reached record levels. Meanwhile, Ukraine, still fighting off Russian aggression, refused to extend its gas transit deal with Moscow. But don't worry, Europe's happy to keep the Kremlin's coffers full, even if it means quietly rerouting LNG through ships and pipelines as long as it doesn't look too obvious. Russia is now the second largest LNG supplier to Europe, trailing only the United States and outpacing Qatar. It's almost poetic. While Ukrainians defend their sovereignty, European politicians sign checks to fund Russia's next adventure. But hey, gas is warm, and ethics don't keep the lights on, right? So, Europe's leaders, master of the do as we say, not as we do doctrine, let's hope that the next winter speeches about standing with Ukraine aren't drowned out by the sound of Russian LNG tankers unloading at European ports. Russia, the land where childhood innocence is swapped out for camo uniforms and propaganda posters before kids can even spell patriotism. While most countries teach children about sharing, kindness, and multiplication tables, Russia's lesson plan includes how to kill Ukrainians. Because apparently finger painting and field trips just don't cut it in the Russian world. Videos of children being trained for war against Ukraine are popping up like bad Soviet reruns. These kids, barely out of diapers, are taught to chant slogans, wield toy rifles, and repeat the Kremlin's greatest hits about Nazis and saving Russian lands. Forget ABCs, Putin's alphabet starts with A for artillery.
Сокол,
Я.
учись, как надо убивать хохлов. Сейчас будешь следующим тренироваться, понял?
Так точно.
Иса, командуй.
Бою.
Есть, боя, бой.
Живее, живее, шевелим локтями.
Вверх бой готов. Бам,
А я
бам,
бой готов.
бам. Прикрой, меняй магазин.
Принял, прикрываю. Бам, 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 бам. Бам, 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 бам.
Вверх бой готов. Бам, бам.
Принял, прикрой меня
Бам,
магазин.
прикрываю. Бам,
Ниже, 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 локтями, блядь, не машина, нахуй, отстрелят. Слышишь, кузнец?
бам,
Так точно.
бам, 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 бам,
Прицельную стрельбу ведем.
бам, 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 Бам. Бам. Бам.
Кузнец, бой готов.
Бам.
Огонь.
Принял. Перезаряжать, прикрой.
Принял, прикрываю. Бам, 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 бам.
Давай, давай, давай,
бам.
живи.
Бам, 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 бам. Бам, 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 бам. Бам, 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 бам.
Вверх стрельба готов.
Бам, бам, бам.
Бам. Бам.
Принял, прикрываю
Бам.
магазин.
Прикрываю. Бам. 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 Бам.
Быстрее, быстрее, быстрее.
Бам. Бам.
Кузнец, бой готов.
Бам.
По 3 выстрела и доклад.
Бам, 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 бам. Кузнец, стрельба окончил. Оружие заряжено и поставлено на предохранитель.
Вверх, доклад.
Вверх стрельбу окончил. Оружие заряжено и поставлено на предохранитель.
Встать на исходную.
Принял.
Встать на исходную.
Понял, Сокол?
Так точно.
Хохлы сами себя не убьют, блядь. Это должны сделать мы.
Meanwhile, the UN politely clears his throat, possibly drafting yet another strongly worded letter. But hey, why rush? After all, what's a little child soldier indoctrination between bureaucratic meetings? So let's get this straight. These kids, brainwashed and robbed of their childhood, are supposed to be the future of Russia. A future built on hate, ignorance, and the haunting sound of marching boots in a playground. Bravo, Kremlin, truly a parenting masterpiece. Vladimir Putin, the man with the grand vision of Russian greatness that somehow never seems to include any actual Russians. While he promises enormous investments in the occupied territories of Ukraine, back in the motherland, entire regions resembles a post-apocalyptic movie set. Take Arkhangelsk, where residents of 19 villages are living in the third world chic lifestyle Putin never mentions during his State of the Nation speeches. Food deliveries haven't arrived in months. Schools accessible only by horseback. Naturally, because who needs buses when you've got stallions? Ambulances? Non-existent. But hey, don't worry, if you break your leg, your neighbors will fashion a handmade swamp sweater and drag you to the nearest hospital. And roads? Oh, those are coming in 2035. That's right, just a quick 12-year wait for an 18-kilometer stretch of civilization. Meanwhile, Putin's pouring billions into rebuilding occupied Ukrainian territories, because apparently the mythical Russian world matters more than the real one. Now, this place can keep its horses and swamp stretchers as long as Mariupol gets a shiny new statue of Putin holding a gas pipeline.
К нашему обращению присоединяются жители еще 12 деревень, расположенных на левом берегу реки Пиниги. Уже почти 2 месяца у нас нет сообщения с районным и областным центром. И в течение этого времени не завозятся продукты, почтовые отправления невозможны. Те, кто работает вахтами, элементарно не могут приехать домой и выехать на работу. А самое главное, мы не можем попасть на прием в больницу. Скорая неотложная помощь нам недоступна. 2 недели назад мужчина сломал ногу, открытый перелом. 3 дня не могли доставить его в районную больницу за 80 километров. На самых непроезжих участках дороги человека с переломом пришлось везти на самодельном болотоходе. 21 век на дворе, а у нас больных везут на болотоходах. И детей из деревни Березник до школы везут на лошадях, так как по нашей дороге машина не проедет.
В случае чрезвычайных ситуаций доступ к нашим деревням закрыт. Продукты питания не завозятся по причине отсутствия переправ.
При обращении в прокуратуру Пинежского района получен ответ. Дорога будет сделана в 2035 году. Нас это не устраивает. Мы хотим жить сейчас.
Now, the irony here is glaring. The man who claims to protect Russians everywhere can't even deliver bread to his own people. But hey, as long as the propaganda machine keeps spinning, who cares if Russia's provinces are stuck in the 19th century? And with that, we conclude this edition of Break the Fake. But for more news, update, and commentary, please stay tuned to TVP World.